We're talking breakout players in the 2025 season, going all the way back to the 2023 draft. Third-year breakouts on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Thanks for hanging out with us, breaking down the entire NFL throughout the offseason. We do not stop in the offseason. Looking ahead to 2025 here at some breakout players, which should be a lot of fun. We already did sort of a look back and a revisit of the first round from 2023 draft, which we're talking about a lot today. But we're going to go a little deeper now into some other sleeper names, actually. And I got some really good names and actually reached out to some friends here on the network. Like, hey,
nice.
Any sleepers out there? And like, not only sleeper names that I wasn't really thinking that were breakout candidates this year, but just like legitimately awesome names.
Okay.
Today. So it should be a lot of fun on this episode. And, a bit, it's kind of a loose, like, what is a breakout player? Is he already good?
Right.
Can he still break out? Can he go to another tier of stardom, maybe, if he's already pretty good? So there's a lot of ways a player can break out in the NFL. And year 2, year 3 is when players tend to take those biggest jumps. And so that's why we're going to do year 3 breakout players today. We're going to go to the 2024 draft and look at some year 2 breakouts on tomorrow's show. I think there's a guy that when we revisited the first round a couple weeks ago, Matt, Anthony Richardson was one of those that he's in a quarterback competition with Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. And he was like, okay, here's time. Like, super talented guy. There's some signs that he could be really good. And there's some things that are hindering that development. And, that was last Monday. We had Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts on the show, right, Matt? And since then, there's been reports out of camp for the Colts that his injury is still lingering. And I think it was Mike Sando that tweeted out, essentially, all the people he talks to around the league, they're like, Daniel Jones is going to win that job.
Yeah, and I think this is a terrible sign, to be honest with you, in that it's mini camp week across the league. I'll be Steeler mini camp, which is ramped up from OTAs, and then there's a long break till training camp. So it's not the end of the world if he's ready for training camp. But just the quotes I saw were, we don't know when he'll be back in training camp. Like, there's no chance he's going to be around for mini camp this week. So Jones will be the starter this week, which is a great way to get your foot in the door to dominate that job. And it sounds like he's going to open camp as the starter. And he's definitely the more accomplished football player. He might be the better football player for a team that's trying to save their job. I probably gave him a 60% chance to win the job a week ago. Now it's maybe at 85. It's a big jump.
There's so many lessons here. But the one thing, and jokingly, I think jokingly, the host of Locked On Titans dropped Treylon Burks as a name on me for a breakout player.
Oh,
and obviously, Treylon Burks wasn't in this draft. He was the year before. So we're talking about a 4th-year breakout player, right?
Okay.
This was the Peter Skoronski year, who, by the way, Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans has big thoughts on Peter Skoronski taking another step forward and being talked about.
He almost made my list, yeah.
In the NFL. That one was a little too easy for me. And it's like, yeah, okay, good guard. Then he's kind of, I kind of expect that. So I don't know if it's going to be a real breakout for him. But jokingly talking about Treylon Burks. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, you got all this talent, but the best ability is availability, right? That's
Absolutely.
the saying. And if Anthony Richardson can't get on the field and can't continue his development, then it's just not going to happen. And it's not happening for Treylon Burks. And you hope that it doesn't go the same direction for Anthony Richardson. That's the path he's on right now.
It really is. I mean, it's just so raw coming out of school, so few attempts at Florida, so few attempts at the Colts, injuries. The play's been highly inconsistent too. I mean, the tap out thing rubs people the wrong way. It's just too many. I mean, red flag after red flag after red flag, and the train's still rolling. You know,
it compounds on itself. It's like the reverse compounding interest. You know,
exactly.
You have no basis to build that financial padding that you want, right? If you're trying to build your talent and bank account. I've got Monarch Money in my head, our sponsor for today's show, by the way. So
mine's the opposite. I was watching Rounders yesterday, and the interest just kept pounding onto the loan sharks. You know,
right.
I mean, yeah, right.
That's more like where he's at. The loan shark. It's like you got to get on the field to repay this and like utilize that talent, and it's no good if you can't do that. And then you need to continue the development, and then you can't because you're hurt. And you're probably not practicing anyway. If you're not hurt, if you're hurt, so you're not playing, not practicing. The thing you need the most is reps. And I saw this all go down in San Francisco with Trey Lance, and it ended very.
Yeah, can't wait.
And here's the thing: it's like the clock is ticking. If you don't win the job over Daniel Jones, you're done with the Colts, and now you're on a backup journeyman path. That's hard.
You hope you land like Baker Mayfield did, but you could end up on 3 or 4 teams in no time. You know, right?
Baker Mayfield had the opportunity to play well in the NFL first,
right,
and have a lot of snaps in college. And Anthony Richardson doesn't even have that.
You could turn to Trey Lance or Kenny Pickett or one of these guys real quick. Where boy, you're on a bunch of teams and nobody's going to hold a spot even for you. So, real quick on the breakouts. I have like 20 names here listed, and I just went through the draft order from 1 to 256 or whatever, and just said, yep, here's one. And some of them are real obvious. I mean, like top of the draft, big name guys, but I do expect them to move up a tier of how we view them.
Drop them. We don't have to go super. I know we get long winded. We just talked about a guy who's not going to be on our, who actually has kind of been taken off of our breakout list, and we're halfway done with our first segment here.
Yeah.
So let's drop some breakout names. Who do you like from the 2024 or 2023 class, year 3 players?
A couple very early picks. I think Will Anderson's on the verge of being in that TJ Watt, Max Crosby stratosphere, not the tier below them.
Like getting votes for defensive player of the year.
Yeah. Like, is he the best edge in the league? Is he as good as Myles Garrett? Let's have that conversation. I think he's on that verge. I also think Jalen Carter's on that verge, you know, where defensive player of the year consideration, that type of thing, you know. And the other high pick I have in the first round was Paris Johnson from the Cardinals. I think he's a really, really good prospect that a year from now we'll be saying, oh, he's a top 5 left tackle. You know,
I think with offensive linemen, like, you know, Paris Johnson, Peter Skronsky, sometimes like it takes an extra year, even after they're already good, for everyone to be like, oh yeah, look how good he is, because you don't get fantasy football stats. So it's not as obvious to, you know, the average person who's not following that particular team.
Even before like PFF or, you know, I've said this for 30 years. I've been in the media that unless you're like a Quentin Nelson drafted guard, you probably go to the Pro Bowl a year too late. And you probably stay there 2 years too long.
There's some other pretty obvious names in the first round. I want to get a little bit deeper into some of these, but a guy like Christian Gonzalez could like catapult into a category of shutdown guy. And Jackson Smith-Njigba is already a broken out player, but more targets now.
More targets coming,
right? And he was already becoming sort of a target hog in that offense. So, you know, he could go crazy for your fantasy teams. Speaking of fantasy football.
The only other first rounder I jotted down, and I'm not saying he's going to be a total star, but I think he'll be more of a household name, is Kalijah Kancey in Tampa. I mean, I think he's a part-time player, way different than Vita Vea, but I think he's an impactful upfield player that will be more well-known a year from now.
Let's move on a little further in this draft. Debut guys, round 2, round 3. Who were some names of players that you like to take another step here in year 3 of their career?
Brian Branch is clearly broken out, but I think he's another one. He'll never get defensive player of the year consideration. He's a nickel. He's a safety, but I think he will be a all-pro for like the next 5 years. I think he's that good at what he does. Another one I picked up that was a high second rounder, Keon White from the Patriots. I thought he really, really flashed this past year. Nobody was watching the Patriots, and there's some guys around him now. The defensive tackles are healthy and signed, you know, Milton Williams and Barmore. So White was high on my list as well. I had to pick a Steeler. I like Keon Benton a lot. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about
Okay.
Keanu Benton. So that was actually, you know what? Let's pause on that.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about the Steelers in the second round, some other names, round 2, round 3, and then we'll get into day 3 from the 2023 NFL draft. Some of our some sleepers to watch in 2025. Who's breaking out this year? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Monarch Money. And when you're trying to build that padding, you're trying to build your financial future. We mentioned compound interest a little bit earlier. I mean, look, we've all been there. You ever check your bank account and you wonder, where did all that money go? You're dining out, you're online shopping, entertainment. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you the full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just budgeting. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and the most important part, if you're managing money with a partner, stay on the same page without the stress. So many insights on how to budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. So talk to me about Joey Porter Jr. He was the first pick in round 2, 32 overall, because who was it that got a pick taken away that year?
That was the Claypool trade. I think the Dolphins forfeited a pick for tampering or something. That sounds right. Yeah.
So there's only 31 picks in the first round. And so Joey Porter Jr. was the 32nd pick in the draft that year. Was there any weird holdouts about that? It was like, hey, I was 32nd pick. I should get a first round bonus here or something.
Not that I heard of, but I mean, I think he drove to the facility that day. I mean, his dad still lives locally. Yeah. He grew up around here. So I think he was just thrilled to be in the black and gold. So he was not
giving. He wasn't going to try to take to the cleaners. It wasn't going to be the Steelers on that one.
Right. I don't think that
Joey Benton, I think it's a good one to talk about.
Yeah.
Is he already post breakout? Because he's a name that probably not a lot of people talk about, but he's already a really good player.
So his first year, he hardly even played on third downs. And then this past year, his role grew more and more. And they're going to try to limit Cam Hayward's snaps. They drafted a defensive tackle in the first round. The sack numbers just haven't been there. He's been impactful, especially as a pass rusher. He plays the nose in their 3-4, which is a little miscast. I think he'll play more and more all over the line of scrimmage. But I think the numbers will be better, and I think he'll get more opportunities on third downs and things like that too.
So we got round 2, round 3 breakout players here. What are the other names on your – some of these players, it's like – I feel like some of these guys have been in the league for 7 years. Rachie Rice.
It feels that way, right?
Yeah. Rachie Rice was in this draft.
I know. He's on my list too.
5 years already, yeah.
So I do have I hesitated to put him on there. I just love his tape, but it seems like something's missing, and the Packers used a first-round pick on Matthew Golden in the first round. But I love Jaden Reed, and I don't think he's just a gimmicky guy. I think he's an explosive weapon that they need. Watson's not going to be in the mix. I don't know if Dubs will be on the team. I think he's a trade candidate. But to me, it's Golden and Reed, but they don't seem to work it that way, you know?
The Packers are such a frustrating team for fantasy owners.
Yes.
But I actually love the way they've put their – in fact, I didn't think they needed to add a first-rounder to that group.
No, right.
Clearly, they thought they were missing a certain element, and who does that impact more? I think Jaden Reed does not get impacted by it, and he's got his role.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm hoping it grows.
Monster slot machine, and maybe it does because I think it's untouched. So whatever it was going to be, it can still be that.
Yeah, I mean, if they're pass catchers, I think him and Golden will be their best playmakers. I know they're not the biggest, strongest guys out there, but I would like to see more of Reed, and I just don't know if that'll happen with Golden selected. A name that's now we're starting to get a little deeper. Names that not everybody knows. I think Irvin Dexter's got a lot of ability with the Bears too. It's kind of like that Benton, just more and more in year 3, interior length, athleticism. I was a fan of him coming out, and I've liked what I've seen. Now I just want to see more and more.
Moving on to some players from day 3 of this, or actually we still got some guys on day 2 of the draft, 3rd round, and then we'll get into the
I got a few
area of players. A player that's actually really coming on and isn't a household name or anything, but is starting to play with a bigger and bigger role for the Chargers is Dion Henley, linebacker.
Oh, he's my favorite one on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really talented, super athletic, one of those undersized, really athletic guys that it just fits the modern day NFL.
100%. I have some guys that were drafted ahead of him still that we'll bring up too, but Henley, to me, I hesitate to go this far, but if there's a third round Fred Warner in this mix, that took a little while but flashed, I think Henley's has a chance to be one of the best linebackers in the league going forward. Maybe not to the Warner level. I mean, I almost didn't want to say that name but he was drafted in a similar spot. Just covers a ton of ground. Great head for the game. He is a little undersized, but he's got length. I mean, I think Henley has a chance to be Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl type guy.
Absolutely. I love that. And so we just talked about Jaden Reed.
Okay.
Jaden Reed career right now, 119 catches, 1,650 yards, 14 touchdowns. That's actually really good touchdown production for
Yes. Gets in the end zone a lot. Yeah.
Third round Colts receiver Josh Downs got 140 catches, more catches.
He's on my list too.
Many yards, but he's really close. 1,574, half as many touchdowns. Could Josh Downs actually benefit from Daniel Jones winning the job with the Colts?
Yes. And even on that Locked On Colts podcast, I asked, who do you expect to lead the team in targets and receptions? And the answer was Downs. And that's what I expect too, even with the first round tight end, even with Pittman. Total slot machine, but he's really, really hard to cover. He was Drake May's favorite target. And then obviously when, they overlapped for a year, he was missed very much in North Carolina. Maybe it was Howe. I mean, he was with Howe quite a bit. And I think Downs is going to be a 100-catch type of guy. Maybe not in that offense, but I think he's capable of being that type of productive player.
Tucker Kraft, already kind of broken out. Potentially more there because he's kind of become the guy, but he's a really good.
I also like Musgrave, but I didn't put them on there just because they both are on the same position. Yeah.
And Tucker Kraft has kind of overtaken Musgrave as the one there. And that's why you draft two guys, because sometimes the guy you draft second is better than the guy you draft first.
Yeah. I also had Rachie Rice on there. You mentioned him, just because, man, anyone had him on their fantasy team last year really felt when he got hurt. I mean, he was one of the most productive receivers in the league. And I think he profiles as their number one far and away. And that's not a knock on Kelsey or Xavier Worthy or any of those guys, but Rice is another high volume. Smith and Jigba, Downs, a couple of these receivers we mentioned have a lot of volume, I think, in their future.
Does Jacksonville Jaguars third round running back from 2023 Tank Bigsby become the dude this year?
Thought about putting him on. I did not. I don't think ATN is going to be in the mix much longer, and I think he's fallen out of favor. I do think Tootin's involved. I think Bigsby was their best back last year, though. So maybe, but
I think it's developed perfectly for Bigsby because they drafted a guy who is not going to take the every down work from Bigsby to be the ATN style complement clearly behind Bigsby when they trade Etienne at the deadline or before the season even starts potentially. And so that's, I think, a big one. If you can draft Bigsby now, I think he's already going to be the lead back there. I like the Bigsby breakout.
It's funny. The Dynasty rookie draft season pretty much just came and went. And I picked up Bigsby on the cheap on like 3 different trades in different leagues. Just like, throw in Bigsby. Because people were thinking, Tootin's going to go past him. And I thought they'd trade ATN by now. So I thought he was a sneaky guy to grab.
I think we have to talk about the Rams, rebuilt defensive line here. Yep. A couple of those guys, you got an outside pass rusher, and Byron Young was the 77th pick in 2023. And then the Kobe Turner, defensive tackle, who's already really good too. And I think just as a group together, they can all be like better and become more household names. But Kobe Turner's already got 17 sacks in the NFL.
I did not put Young on the list, but I do recognize that he is an ascending and high quality player. Turner was another one of my favorites. I mean, he's well known than a guy like Dion Henley, but I do think he could be Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl as well. I mean, to that point, I don't think he's Jalen Carter's level, but I think he could be. If Jalen Carter goes from tier 2 to MVP type guy, I think Turner goes from tier 3 to tier 2. You know what I mean?
In fact, it just dawned on me looking at this career sacks so far the first 2 years of this entire draft class. Will Anderson is 1 with 18 sacks.
Okay.
Number 2 and 3 are Kobe Turner with 17 and Byron Young with 15 and a half sacks.
Wow. It's amazing what they've done to that D-line. And they've added like Poona Ford to it this year too. I mean, and we've already talked about Verse quite a bit. And I don't love Fisk as much as some people do, but I think Turner and Verse are the ones they're the keys to the castle kind of. They're the guys, the straws that stir the drink of the group.
Day 3 break. Do you have any more day 2 before we go?
Tui Palopo. I crush his name. I'm sorry. But and they let Bosa go. They did extend Bud Dupree, but I think this is a player that now that he's basically the starter, could be a 8 to 10 sack type of guy.
Tui Lopao. Tui.
Yes. I crush his
Tui
name.
Pelotu. Excuse me. Tuli. I was going to call him Tui. It's Tuli Pelotu. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, Tuli. I didn't get that one right.
But I do have one other on day 2. And we've seen some flashes of Tilman with the Browns, the wide receiver. I don't know why his first name is escaping me. I can't find his name on the list here. But
Cedric Tilman?
Cedric Tilman.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's him and Judy as the true starters. Deontay Johnson in the way doesn't bother me at all. Tillman's a physical chain mover, tough guy. I think he's a high-quality starting receiver, like fantasy-worthy type guy.
I didn't put him on my list just because there's so many questions there, and I kind of already expected a little bit more from him and more opportunity. He hasn't just like gone out and grabbed it in 2 years yet. But
yeah.
I think for certain positions like tight end, wide receiver, quarterback, there's just certain positions, a lot of the offensive positions, just like there's just more development needed.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's year 3 more than year 2 for some of those guys.
And it's exactly what I was going to say about him, especially coming from that really weird Tennessee offense. Like he's running a much wider route tree now. He's doing the little things. That's a real weird adjustment coming from Tennessee. Like, I'm not sure Hyatt's ready to do it, but I think Tilman is.
Moving on to some breakouts from day 3 of the 2023 draft. Year 3 guys to look out for this season next. All right, as we move on to round 4 and beyond from the 2023 draft, and there's still some good names out there and some players that I like to do some big things, and some interesting names that have been whispered to me from some hosts around the NFL as well. Where do you go first when you look at some guys that might have a little bit more to them? I mean, the first name that pops up in round 4, and we talked with Spencer German, the host of Locked On Browns, earlier this week.
That was the name I was thinking of too.
Dwan Jones, an offensive lineman that kind of jumped on the scene. He's like, oh, this guy can play. He shouldn't have fallen. He's kind of oversized, and it's like, he wasn't too big. He can move, he can play. Shouldn't have dropped. Shouldn't fall into the 4th round period. Now he's got an opportunity to be that franchise left tackle for the Browns.
Yep, that was my first day 3 name for sure. And he moves pretty well. I hope he's trimmed down a little, or at least is continuing to maintain his weight. He's moving full time, it sounds like, to left tackle. And I publicly have been super critical of the Browns of not addressing O-line enough, but I do think they found a gem there with the 111th pick in this draft.
I want to drop one more name here from round 4. It was a name I was not considering until it was told to me by Kevin Westbrook, the host of Locked On Ravens, to look out for him this year, and that's Tavius Robinson.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about him.
The edge, the defensive end. He's got 4.5 sacks so far in his career, but apparently there's an opportunity for him now to have a big time season in Baltimore. So
okay, glad you brought him up, because there's definitely opportunity there. I mean, they did draft the 2nd round edge, and they have Ajomo and those guys, but they could use it. I know he had a lot of ability coming out of school and was a little on the raw side. Okay, that's a good one.
And just 2 picks after him. And this some of this is like, okay, my priors pre-draft players that you liked, you still believe in them even if they haven't broken out yet. Again, Spencer German from last week's episode, host of Locked On Browns, breaking down this team and what we're looking at with this defense, could be the guy that starts and gets the most snaps across from Myles Garrett in Cleveland. So Isaiah McGuire, 4th round pick. I mean, he has all the ability. Like he was a prototype. He's got length. He's got athleticism. He's got size. He was productive at Missouri. I don't know why it's been taking this long. Maybe there's something else there, and that's why he lasted to the 4th round. I thought he was a day 2 guy all day, but Isaiah McGuire, Cleveland pass rusher, still big. Okay. And he's got one more year to confirm my priors.
And I liked him coming out of school too. I thought he was more of a day 2 guy as well. And, he obviously will benefit from all the attention Garrett gets as well. So maybe he ends up with 8 sacks or something along those lines, as close to an every down player. That's a good one too.
Who's next for you on day 3?
I only have one other name, and I probably could be convinced of others, but in a very Eagles-like manner, really scrolling down here, Moro Ajomo, defensive tackle from Texas Eagles. I think he could be next in their deep defensive line rotation. Where'd he come from? Oh, the Eagles, developed another guy. One of those type of deals,
Louis DiBiase of Locked On Eagles dropped the same name.
Did he? Okay, that makes me feel better.
And so, there's good reason, and there's more opportunity on that defensive line.
Yeah,
filtering guys through. Nolan Smith was the 1st rounder, right? And he's kind of in that mix of guys, and they already proved, some of them already, that we're kind of already ready. And I think it allowed the Eagles to do what they did this offseason. It's like, okay, we're going to let this guy walk, and we've got to put a lot of people we've already drafted and developed, and that's why the Eagles are so good, because they have the next wave at really important positions ready, and you can develop a day 3 guy to become the next guy, and you're not forced to be like, we just got to overdraft this guy in round 1 because we have to have a defensive end. Now you got a wave of them, and you're developing, and now you're earning. You want to talk about your bank account, right? And some of that compound interest, man. The Eagles have been able to do that in the draft, and that's why they are where they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Carter obviously is a long-term superstar. I think Jordan Davis has been a little disappointing and may not be there long-term. We mentioned Milt Williams. He's now with the Patriots, but he yields you a 3rd-round comp pick in the process, and then you just bump this guy up that you took really late in the draft and have developed so much. He was the 249th pick, out of Texas. And then we saw ability then too.
I'm still, something hung me up when I was looking at these defensive ends, and we were talking about Tavius Robinson. We were talking about Isaiah McGuire at the end of round 4. There was a run on quarterbacks, if you remember, in that late round 4 area. Jake Haener, Stetson Bennett, and Aiden O'Connell at the very end of that round. And we always preach, like, look, keep drafting quarterbacks, and but it's like, you also look at this and you're like, yeah, it would be really nice to have a pass rusher instead of like just a bad backup quarterback too.
It's funny because as you mentioned that, I scrolled up to that part of the draft, and even real early in the 5th round, Clayton Tune, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, they went shortly after those guys, right after O'Connell, really. And
that was all in 10 picks.
All within like 10 picks, and I don't think I won any of them.
From pick 127, late round 4, to 140. 5 quarterbacks went in 13 picks.
Sean Clifford not that far after too, like
Aiden O'Connell.
He's the only one I might want.
And you wouldn't want him starting. You would hope he doesn't have to play. And the other guys you might not even want to roster. They're like number 3 guys.
I would say a lot of them I'm not sure will even be on a team this year, let alone next. Some of these dudes are way down depth charts.
A couple of more names here. And
you got some?
Again, a player that I liked before the draft, and he's been very close to a breakout. And we already talked about the Green Bay Packers, but Dontavian Wicks, the 5th round pick, he can
hold on to the ball,
starting wide receiver talent all day long.
Yeah.
But now he's in that just clustered. He's lost. I know you've talked about Romeo Doubs being traded to the Steelers. I want to see Dontavian Wicks traded to the Steelers. I want to see Dontavian Wicks somewhere else where he can get the full complement. Are they down on him? Is he available potentially? But like, dude could get open and catch the football. He's a really good player. If he can hold on to the ball.
A lot of trades.
Starting guy all day long. He might be their 4th?
I would think he's their 4th right now. I mean, that 1st round pick doesn't do him any justice at all. boy, he was a super hot dynasty name and definitely would have been on my list if we did this a year ago. I just thought last year went pretty poorly for him, but mostly drops. And I know people are like, oh, you can't drop football if you're a receiver. You probably didn't get to the receiver here if you're a heavy drop guy. And usually that's a lot of flukiness, to be honest with you. I mean, drops aren't super sticky with receivers. And so maybe it's just a bad year or hand injury that we didn't know about or something goofy. But I like his traits.
We keep talking about the Packers. A few more names I want to drop here. Round 6, Carl Brooks, defensive tackle.
I like him
sacks already. Really awesome, rotational player. Could there be even more there? I think there possibly could be for Carl Brooks this year. And here's a name that I was not going to bring up that was recommended to me by the host of Locked On Bucks, and that is James Yarko. Servassier Dennis, the best name in the draft. He was knighted before he even has a chance to break out in the NFL. Servassier Dennis, breakout player in the 5th round from that class out of Tampa, and linebacker, and new opportunities in Tampa.
I watched him a lot at Pitt, and he has traits as well. I found it really odd that Tampa did not draft a off-the-ball linebacker high. But as we always say, if you read the tea leaves deep enough, sometimes they tell you these things, and maybe they're high enough on Servassier Dennis.
Yep. Big opportunity for breakout there. One more actually linebacker from that same round, 5th round, Houston Texans out of Alabama, Henry To'o.
Okay. Definitely fits that system well. That Niners run and hit, right.
Mm-hmm. Weak side backer, keep him clean, let him flow to the football.
Yeah. Well, small, but that's okay.
Obviously, I want to talk about Puka Nacua. Broke out the immediately.
I don't even know what to say more about him. Right?
The NFL, right? So it's not going to probably be ever. What's crazy, he may never even be better than he was in year 1. But Cooper Kupp is elsewhere, so targets galore for Puka Nacua. Where's he going in fantasy drafts, by the way, right now?
1st round. I mean, like end of the 1st round. He's going like Nico Collins neighborhood, like behind Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, but then he could be wide receiver 4. I mean, he's, you want him or Christian McCaffrey at pick 8. That's about where he's going. That's why I didn't bring him up. I think I don't know if there's any more higher he could go.
Right. Yeah. You can't really project a breakout for a guy who's going to be drafted already in the 1st round of your fantasy league.
Right.
Andre Yosevas, they
thought about him too, and a lot of buzz about him.
Player, 6th round wide receiver, but they kind of signed everybody back. So you can't really, there's no targets to go around for Yosevas anymore now, I think, in Cincinnati, unless guys continue to get hurt there. I'll add one more. Here's another thing that I love about this, and we kind of tend to forget about past drafts, and so I love going back and looking back at these classes every summer.
It's a good exercise.
How many linebackers have you brought up?
Other than Henley, none that I'm confident in.
But D. Winters is another guy, 49ers, linebacker. Yeah. I just feel like linebacker it's so valuable, and it's so hard to find these guys, but it's also like most of the good ones aren't coming in the 1st round. Like,
no, they absolutely not. I would not use it. I would rather use a 1st round pick on a running back than a linebacker, I think. It's getting to that point where it's at least a conversation.
It's not quite there for me, but it's still the running back.
Terrible track record.
Right. Yeah. I think
that could even be a show, because I wrote a long article about it when Devin Bush was really floundering. It was like his 2nd year, and I basically said everyone drafted in the 1st round stinks that are linebackers. He's not alone.
It's because you're chasing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
What's the important thing? And that's not what you're looking for in 1st rounders when it comes to linebackers. In a lot of times, you're hoping that the instincts and that ability is there along with the height, weight, speed that you're actually drafting. But D. Winters, he's going to be the first guy up in camp with those reps next to Fred Warner at weak side linebacker for the 49ers, competing with the rounder and Nick Martin. So, yeah, like you've talked about a lot of guys who get starting opportunities at linebacker here, day 2 and day 3 of this NFL draft. It's a good lesson.
And I bet the 3rd year, 4th round guy, there'll be a bunch of names that we start to hear about. But
yeah. And then some of them will get an opportunity and be like, yeah, actually, you know what? He's not that good. But he was a 5th round pick. So who cares?
You don't have that much invested in him, right? Yeah. Other than Roquan Smith, hardly any of the early picks have hit.
There you go. Who are your favorite year 3 breakouts that we did not mention on today's show? Hit us up at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. And get our mailbag questions in for this week as well. Right here, Peacock and Williamson.